Football Playbook, our 74th edition, I think, here, Tone, on this great Thursday, December 15th, the tutorial Thursday with Dane Vandernat there, of course, Executive Director of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. Always great to talk a little NFL draft, which I will tell you guys this. Once the Super Bowl is over in 59 days, we will become NFL draft headquarters. We will become the center of the NFL draft universe here on the Football Playbook. Of course, NFLDraftBible.com, our 21st year of coverage. And we've got now, believe it or not, over 700. You hear that, guys? 700 scouting reports for 2023 and beyond. Let me remind you, only 250 guys get drafted. We've got over 700 scouting reports. Every player you just heard Dane rattle off, you can go find a scouting report up over at the NFLDraftBible.com. Of course, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. And our next guest is part of the Delaware Online Network. Go check out his work at DelawareOnline.com. Of course, Delaware News Journal's very own Martin Frank here on the Football Playbook. Good morning, Martin. How are you today?
Great, Rick. How are you? Just trying to stay dry.
Yeah, I know. The winter front is coming in. The weather is frightful. It's that time of the year. It's December 15th, and hard to believe the calendar is going to expire on us. I got to ask, how's the Christmas shopping going in the Frank household? Are we there yet, or we got a ways to go?
We got a ways to go and not much time to get there.
Yeah, you're like me. I'm a last second guy.
Yeah, I didn't plan to be. It just kind of snuck up on me,
Oh,
it's
you're a busy man. We got the best team in football, the 12-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Not a lot of time to time off here. I know the Eagles, on a side note, on an off football topic, we're getting involved in the community. Jalen Hurts spoke about it at length. Meek Mill was in the building, I believe. And let's talk a little bit about some of the things the Eagles are doing off the field before we get into their on the field antics.
Yeah, I mean, they've been really busy. With the holiday season and everything, they try to take advantage of that stuff on Tuesdays, which is kind of the players' day off and everything. And, Jalen Hurts was pretty much all over the place yesterday or Monday. Was it Monday? Maybe it was Monday and yesterday, going to a school where there was a shooting recently. A 14-year-old football player got killed on the way back from practice. He spent like a couple hours there, talked to the entire school and everything. So, I mean, that was a great move on his part. Obviously, it's a little bittersweet because, if none of that had happened, he wouldn't be there,
Sure.
But,
yeah, I know he was out at the Hank Gathers Community Center, and then he was giving out winter jackets and doing a
lot of the players use this time of year to do stuff. I know Devontae has something coming up next week, and obviously Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata have their Christmas album, which goes to benefit a charity and everything like that. So yeah, just a lot of stuff going on this time of year.
Which, by the way, Martin, I tried to get me a copy of that Christmas album. I had to go to eBay, and they're going for like $5-6 grand now.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I was talking to Jordan Mailata about it last week, and he's like the song they released on Friday sold out in like 10 minutes, and people are like emailing. I'm like, I can't get a copy.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, and Jordan can really sing. I mean, it's it's worth it to just to hear that. I mean, the guy's a pro pretty much.
No, I was blown away by it. Yeah, he's got some pipes on him, and I was stunned, quite frankly. And no, it's great because I heard like Sirianni earlier in the week when Brandon Graham was nominated for the Walter Payton Award, and he said, "Man, Brandon has really utilized his platform to give back to the community and just impact people in so many positive ways." And obviously, Brandon Graham is playing lights out, a candidate for comeback player of the year. I know you wrote an article. He's doing his George Foreman impression, letting guys jab, and he's coming in for the TKO. But, I mean, talk about this defensive line rotation, the ability to keep guys like Brandon Graham fresh. And, you just don't know I mean, if you're an opposing offensive lineman, you literally got to keep your head on a swivel. These guys are coming from every angle, every direction.
Yeah, and like, who do you double team? I mean, you double team Fletcher Cox and, guys on the outside. Josh Sweat is 7.5 sacks. You double team someone like Hassan Reddick, and then guys, you have Ndamukong Suh, you have Linval Joseph, you have Jordan Davis, you have Cox, you have Hargrave. I mean, it's just relentless. Just a relentless attack on the quarterback. They're really all having a great year, and they're really working well together. I mean, that's one of the keys. Like, a lot of these guys, are used to playing most of the game. They're used to, having the spotlight to themselves, and you really have to buy in and realize, hey, I'm not going to play as much, but, hey, I'm going to be fresh in the fourth quarter. I'm also going to be fresh later on in the season, heading into the playoffs. And guys like Brandon Graham are just thriving on that. I mean, he's playing 40% of the snaps, and I think against the Giants, he might have had 23 total snaps, somewhere in that area, between 20 and 25. He had 3 sacks in those, 20, however many snaps he had. It's crazy, just like the production they've gotten. They already lead the NFL with 49 sacks. They're on pace to break the franchise record, which, was set in 91 they had some pretty good pass rushers back then, like in Reggie White and Jerome Brown and guys like that. So, I mean, what they're doing is just incredible. I mean, quarterbacks are like pretty much on the run the whole time. And yeah, it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, that Buddy Ryan squad had 3 defenders with double-digit sacks: Clyde Simmons, Reggie White, Jerome Brown. This team could have twice as. I mean, there's a lot of guys that could wind up with double digits. It's fascinating, and
I think it's. No, I was just going to say, I think this is like the first time in team history they have 5 guys with at least 6 sacks, and they're still like.
I think it's the first time in NFL history, actually, Martin. I don't think there's been an NFL team to ever do that.
You might be right.
We got to come up with a nickname for these guys. What the heck is going on? And Brandon Graham did speak to that. He said he doesn't get double teamed as much as he used to, but he feels good with the limited playing time because he could come in, he can give his all, and it's really about like finding mismatches and situational football. You mentioned Fletcher Cox too. They can now, with Linval and Suh, kind of put him in situation. Remember the week before they signed those guys, he was up to like 70 something.
Yeah,
snaps.
right.
And it's kind of extended the shelf life of these guys. I was going to say Brandon Graham might be playing himself into another contract to return next year, right?
Might as well.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, the Eagles have the 3-10 Chicago Bears this week. We're already on Thursday. The Giants are pretty much an afterthought, but these Eagles offenses have been putting up 40 burgers. They've been matching the defensive intensity, and I'll tell you what, the players, the coaches, they've done a good job of playing coy when it comes to the media and giving the Bears a lot of props, a lot of kudos. We're not overlooking them. Even Jalen, he wouldn't let you guys end the media from yesterday without making sure you got a Bears question in.
Yeah, it's I mean, they've kind of had that mentality like all season long, and obviously it's easy to look past the Bears because A, they're 3-10, and B, you've got a pretty good Christmas Eve matchup coming up against the Cowboys, which pretty much will determine, not only the NFC East, but also, could also determine the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs, which gives you a week off, the only team to have a week off. So, it's a huge game, but, you got to beat the Bears first, and you can't look past them. And I think that was kind of Jalen Hurts' message when he said that yesterday, was like, hey, we're playing the Bears this week. You don't care about like the Cowboys or what Micah Parsons might be saying and stuff like that. We're focused on the Bears, and that's kind of like the mentality they've had all year. I mean, they've never really looked past an opponent. I can't really think of any kind of game where they were kind of like, but maybe this is it. But I think they've got. I mean, they know what they have to do to beat the Bears. I mean, it's obviously you got to stop Justin Fields, and if you can do that or at least keep under control, I mean, they shouldn't really have too much of a problem against the Bears.
Yeah, and listen, they could have very easily been distracted and taken their eye off the prize this week with Micah Parsons' comments. I know the media was having fun asking every player, every coach about Micah Parsons' comments, but for the most part, I don't think the Eagles players took the bait. Jordan Mailata probably was the most outspoken about it yesterday, but
Right.
What was your takeaway?
Yeah, when you break down what he said, I mean, it didn't seem that bad. Like, he's saying they have a great team, and Jalen Hurts is playing great because they have a great team. I mean, he wasn't like, I didn't take it as he was dissing Jalen Hurts. I just took it as, the whole team is having a great year. So, and it's because it's the Cowboys and it's Micah Parsons, and he probably shouldn't have said anything, if he was smart about it, obviously with the big game coming up. But he did, and it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm sure, obviously a lot of the Eagles players were being asked about it yesterday because it was Micah Parsons, but they're all like, well, that's great, but we're worried about the Chicago Bears. And yeah, I saw Mailata's comments too, and they weren't that bad. It's like,
no, he just he dropped an F-bomb, so it was colorful, and
yeah.
Jordan was, I think, having fun with it, but I'm sure the storyline will continue into Cowboys week next week.
Oh yeah.
But I saw also you put out an article about the Eagles playoffs hunt, and if they do beat the Bears and the Cowboys, they will wrap up that #1 seed.
Right.
Can be dangerous, right? Because now you have maybe possibly a month goes by until you play a competitive game, and you'll get the #1 seed, but you'll also face a team that's been scrapping and clawing and fighting each and every single week. And to your point in the article, we've seen a lot of teams in recent past come and go that had a dominant regular season and then were quick to depart and exit and punch out come playoff time, right?
Yeah, I mean, that happened to both the #1 seeds last year, Green Bay in the NFC and Tennessee in the AFC. They both got, the #1 seed, the bye, and then they both lost in their first game, the divisional game. So, I mean, the Eagles have to play it smart. And really, so how do you do that? I mean, obviously you want to rest as many guys as you can, but like you can't like sit Jalen Hurts and the offense out like that entire last game, because then it's 3 weeks before they play again. So, do you play those guys like, the first half, which I would think would be the way to do it. And then you have also the week off the next week. And do you do that, like, let's say you clinch everything against Dallas, do you do that against the Saints as well? Because that game doesn't mean anything. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they handle that. I mean, if it, it should get to that point, but once they do get to that point, like how are they going to handle all that? Because, from what recent history showed last year, I mean, if you're not sharp in that first playoff game, even though you're at home, even though you have the best record, I mean, anything can happen. It's a whole different animal. And, it depends who you're getting too. I mean, you look at a team like the Lions, right now they're not in the playoffs, but they've been probably the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in the NFL. And, if the Eagles get them in the first round, well, the divisional round, I mean, yeah, they might not have a great record, but that's a pretty dangerous team. I mean, the Eagles saw that for themselves in the opener. They only won like 38-35. So,
agree.
You got to be sharp. You can't, if you get that week off, you got to use it wisely. You got to make sure everybody who's hurt is healthy, and you got to make sure you find a way to keep the players sharp going into that game.
Yeah, the Lions, I'd throw the Commanders in that equation too. Coming off the bye week this week, they got that late season bye. They're playing good football. They have a pretty good defense. Those are two teams. Nobody's going to want to play the Commanders or Lions come playoff time. Hey, we're talking to Martin Frank, DelawareOnline.com, one of the best in the business here on the Football Playbook. And I want to ask you, I'll circle back to some of the Eagles injuries. I think I have a good feel for them, Martin, but I saw yesterday Justin Fields popped up on the injury report with an illness, as well as Chase Claypool with the knee. I mean, these are maybe the only two guys we can pick out of a lineup on the Chicago Bears roster, and they popped up on the injury report yesterday.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting development. I mean, I think there was one game recently where Fields didn't play, and they pretty much got annihilated. I mean, he's a great player. He gives them a huge, he changes the dynamic of that team. I mean, they have a chance offensively with Justin Fields in there because he's such a great runner. It's kind of like what Jalen Hurts was last year. I mean, he pretty much ran all up and down the field, didn't really have anyone to throw to. And yeah, you mentioned Claypool. I mean, they traded for him at the deadline. They gave up a second-round pick. I mean, I don't think he's done a whole lot since he's gotten there, but I mean, he's burned the Eagles before, so they're very familiar with him. And, the fact that he's got a knee injury, that's I would think that's more serious than Fields' illness. I mean, you figure you rest for a day or two, he should be back. I'm pretty confident that Justin Fields will be out there on Sunday. I mean, I don't think he'd want to miss this game. But, as for Claypool, I'm not sure what the situation is with that. I mean, and that would be, you look at their wide receivers, he would be one of the best. So,
yeah,
and that's not saying a whole lot.
No, there's not a lot going on. I know Claypool had 12 catches in 5 games. Not a lot going on this Chicago Bears offense. Fields seems like a gamer, so I do think he'll give it a go. How about for the Eagles? Because I mean, this offensive line. I mean, I don't think I'm worried, but it could be concerning. Like Lane Johnson with the abdomen and Lane Dickerson with the back injury. Are these situations we should be keeping an eye on, or what's your take here, Martin?
I get the feeling they're both going to play. I mean, Landon Dickerson has kind of had things crop up during the games pretty much all season. I mean, he's got a history of like ankle and knee injuries and stuff like that. I mean, the back seems like it's kind of new, but the fact that he was limited, I think he'll be all right. And Lane Johnson will play pretty much through anything. I mean, he seemed kind of upset Sunday that they took him out, even though they were winning by so much in the fourth quarter. But it was pretty much precautionary. I'm pretty sure Lane will be in there too. But I mean, it's a pretty deep offensive line. I mean, they've replaced those guys before, and they've done pretty well. So, Jack Driscoll started a bunch of games early in the year. They have they've moved Andre Dillard to left guard. So. The guy's a former first-round pick and everything. So I think they would be okay, if those two guys either can't play or have to leave the game. So I wouldn't worry too much about it.
All right, fair enough. Quez Watkins, I saw popped up on the injury report again yesterday. He was limited. Is that a nagging? Was that the hammy, or is this a new injury? What's going on?
I think it's a shoulder injury. I think it also affected him last week. Like, I think he was limited last week with the same thing, and he ended up playing. The difference this week is there's a pretty good chance. I mean, I'd pretty much take it to the bank that Dallas Goedert comes back this week. He gets activated off IR. So, you got your big 3 back with Goedert, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. So, if Quez is limited, if he's not full strength, I mean, I think they'll be okay. I mean, they got a pretty good guy coming back in,
What makes you feel confident about Goedert coming back? I saw him speak to the media. He just kind of said, "We'll see. Got to see how it feels. Make the smart decision." Still up in the air. Was he practicing yesterday or?
Well, they did a walkthrough. Today's kind of like the big day to kind of see how everything is. I mean, they'll be practicing indoors, obviously, because of the weather. But I remember we talked to him like maybe 2 weeks ago, and he was pissed that he was on IR in the first place. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll definitely be ready once, the first day I'm eligible and stuff." And I don't think any of that has changed. Like, he was describing, someone asked him like if he could even lift his arms and stuff like that. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was never an issue." It was like a small fracture in the back of his shoulder blade. I think that's what it was. So, he said once it healed, I mean, it's pretty much just getting the strength back and everything. So I personally think he's going to play. I mean, he's been able to stay in shape, like, cardiovascular wise, because obviously it's a shoulder injury, so he could do all that. So, uh, I've heard a lot of people speculate, oh, well, maybe they should just take the safe route, let him sit, this game, and then have him ready for the Cowboys. But I don't think they look at it that way. I mean, if he's ready to play, he's going to play, and it's probably good, for him to come back if that's the case, because you kind of want to get a game under your belt going into that Cowboys game too. So I personally think he'll play on Sunday, and I think he'll be the Dallas Goedert that we've gotten used to seeing. So it'll be a big addition for them for sure.
Yeah, big addition back. And he did say that every game's important. He wants to go. So I guess we'll find out later on today how he responds being back on the practice field. Okay, a couple more guys I want to get to here. Reed Blankenship, he was in the locker room with the knee brace on, is my understanding, in relatively good spirits. I was hearing maybe 1 or 2 games. What are you hearing, Martin?
Yeah, I think that's the case. I mean, the fact that they haven't put him on IR yet, kind of means that they think he'll be back in a couple weeks. I mean, I would strongly doubt he's playing this Sunday, and probably because the Cowboys game is on a Saturday, it's kind of a short week. I mean, I would think he's probably out for that too. But then, January 1st, they got the Saints. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's eligible to come off IR that week too. So, you could get both of those guys back then. I would like to think that definitely before the end of the regular season, one or both of those guys should be back. And I think the Eagles want them back, obviously, because then, they have a game under their belts before the playoffs start, because they're going to have most likely 2 weeks after that before they play again. So I would like to think that Blankenship and or Gardner-Johnson will be back before the end of the season.
Let me ask you your personal opinion, Martin, because Reed Blankenship was basically a backup before Chauncey got hurt, and then he played pretty well. I know Marcus Epps is kind of like the Eagles' Iron Man on defense. He's one of these guys that almost plays 100 snaps every game. What do you feel like the Eagles are going to do? Will that safety become a rotation now when everybody's healthy, or will it go back to just being Chauncey and Epps and Reed when needed?
I think it'd mostly be Chauncey and Epps and Reed when needed. You got to give Blankenship a lot of credit, because here's a guy who was an undrafted free agent from Middle Tennessee State. I mean, it's not exactly like, the Michigans and Ohio States of the world. And not only did he get a roster spot, he also passed Kayvon Wallace in the pecking order, and became the third safety. So when Chauncey went out, Reed Blankenship is thrown right in there, and he picks off Aaron Rodgers, in his first game, first full game playing, basically. It's not a bad year. You can tell your grandkids, hey, I intercepted Aaron Rodgers in my first game. So, he's a guy that they like a lot. I mean, his strength is obviously tackling. You can play him closer to the line of scrimmage. You can pick up a tight end coming across the middle, and he could even tackle a running back who gets through the the initial defensive line and everything like that. So there's a value to him and stuff, definitely. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day down the road he becomes a full-time starter in the NFL. I mean, it gives the Eagles a pretty big decision, because Gardner-Johnson's a free agent after this season. He's having a huge year, so it's probably going to cost them a lot if they want to keep him, which I assume they'd want to keep him. So do they pay the money, for Gardner-Johnson? Do they kind of say, hey, maybe we'll take our chances with Reed Blankenship and sign somebody on the cheap just in case it doesn't work out? I mean, so many questions with that, but credit to Reed Blankenship, because he's kind of put himself in that position where the Eagles have to make a decision. So,
well, yeah. If anything, I think Reed is, I don't want to say made it an easier decision. I will say this: it's much harder to find a lockdown cover corner like a James Bradbury than it is to find a safety. And if you got one kind of on the back burner, finding another James Bradbury is going to be a tough deal. Finding another safety, a little bit easier. So we shall see. That's a question for the offseason, but it's going to be tough to sign a premier safety and a premier corner with all the pending free agents, as you know. Last one, because I heard conflicting things on Sean Bradley from a special team standpoint. I heard was expected to return, but then I heard maybe not so fast, my friend. But I think that Christian Ellis, regardless of Sean Bradley's status, should be on the active roster once again. That should be a boost to the special teams to have both Ellis and Bradley, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Bradley's always been one of their better special teams players. I mean, that's why he's still on the team. I mean, he doesn't give you much as a linebacker, but yeah, so like he was like last week, he didn't practice at all with the hamstring injury, and he was kind of listed as limited on Wednesday, which was a walkthrough. I mean, so it's basically an estimation. So obviously they look at it like it's getting better. I mean, today would be a more same with Goddard would be a better test of like how he does and whether he'll be able to play on Sunday. But if they could get Bradley back, they love Christian Ellis. The problem is though, they got the two guys on the practice squad who they just signed, Anthony Harris and the punter Brett Kern, and unless they put them on the 53-man roster, those would be the two guys who would get the practice squad elevation. So then you can't do Christian Ellis in that case. So, maybe it's a situation where it's one or the other, but I would think like either Harris or Kern are going to be added to the 53-man roster because, they got to find a spot there for one of those guys. But it'll be an interesting to see how they play that going into Sunday's game. Because Ellis has been great on special teams. I mean, the last 2 weeks they've played a lot better on special teams, and what's the difference? Christian Ellis.
True story. And like somebody said, they might not need a punter on Sunday, but you got to have one active.
Well, Jake Elliott could do it, I guess.
Yeah. With that being said, Martin, the Eagles are another week, another heavy favorites. Give us a little prediction here on your way out the door, and then tell our great listening audience at home all the content you have coming up at DelawareOnline.com.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it's going to be a really fascinating matchup to watch. Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts. I mean, like I said before, I see Justin Fields as Jalen Hurts from 2021. So, if he's successful running the ball, I mean, the Bears can possibly keep the ball for, a decent amount of the game and stuff, and that in turn keeps the Eagles' offense off the field. But I just think the Bears defense is so bad that the Eagles will be able to score every time they kind of get the ball, whether they take their time and go down the field like 14-play drives, 7-minute drives and everything, or they just light them up with the 50-yard bomb to Devontae or A.J. Brown. I think the Eagles will win 32-21, but I think Fields will definitely make it interesting. I mean, otherwise, if Fields doesn't play, then they won't score. But
21, where I was going to say, where are they getting 21 from on that offense? Are they going to need some special teams or a pick six or something? They're going to need a Gardner Minshew garbage time pick six or something going on there.
Yeah, I can see like if Fields is playing and he's healthy and stuff like that, I think they'll kind of keep it interesting for a while. I mean, you look at their 10 losses, I think 6 of them have come by like a score or less, and the one of the 4 that didn't, Fields didn't play. So, he keeps them competitive. I think the Bears will be tougher than people will think, but I still think the Eagles will win by 11, 12 points, something like that.
All right, we shall see. Are you heading out to Chicago, by the way?
Yes, I am.
Buckle up and bundle up and layer up. I saw it's going to be temperature. No rain, sleet, or snow, but it is going to be 20, and we know it'll be windy. So safe travels out to
Chicago in December. Nothing better.
Yeah. All right, Martin. Always appreciate the time, my man. Safe travels out there. I'm sure we'll chat with you soon.
All right, great. Thanks for having me, Rick.
Absolutely. That's my favorite Martin Frank, Delaware Online Journal, Delaware News Journal, DelawareOnline.com for all of his great content. And again, we do criticize the Philadelphia media brethren here sometimes, but Martin Frank is not one of those guys. He actually does a great job, asks excellent, insightful questions, and I was having a little bit of fun with Martin because he is a savvy. He's a veteran media guy now. He knows how to sneak an extra question or two in on Coach Sirianni. Some of these young whippersnappers could should take some notes. They could learn a thing or two from watching how Martin Frank covers the beat for the Delaware News Journal. All right. Hey, that was fun. I can't believe time is flying by. We've got maybe only a half hour left in the program here on the Football Playbook, our 74th edition, Thursday, December 15th. Our super producer, Tone DeShields II, holding it down behind the scenes. We had Dane Vandernat talking a little NFL draft. We got you covered with all the injury updates. I'm pretty sure of that. When we come back from the commercial, I'll dive into the Bears depth chart I have here. We'll get into a little bit of that. We'll try to dabble with some of the other news and notes that I have on the docket. I'm going to tell you why the Chicago Bears, who run the ball 60% of the time, I have a feeling they're going to run the ball even more than that on Sunday. I'm going to tell you why right after the commercial break. Make sure you smash that like button on the way out, and we'll see you.